Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another film review. Tonight we're looking at a Giallo film by Umberto Lenzi and it's called Seven Blood-Stained Orchids. Umberto Lenzi is done quite a few sort of Giallo horror films. I think he's even ventured into the world of cannibal films as well. But this is one of his early sort of Giallo films released by 88 Films. And it starts off a typical way. We've got this car driving at night and it's fantastic music. Really cool soundtrack. I love it. The soundtrack sort of reminds me of a cross between sort of the Ick Press Files and Dirty Harry's. Got that sort of sound to it. And we're out in this car with our so-called killer, if you like, and he's prowling in his car, and he goes and he sort of like, we see him making not too long into the film and he makes his sort of first kill. We don't really see a lot of it because we don't see many of the kills, to be honest, too much, because well, we do, but I can't show you them for a number of reasons. Some of them are quite brutal and other ones they've got naked girls in it. So he makes a kill, and this is just sort of building up the sort of case, and then we cut to like an area of like where there's sort of like all these ladies of the night, shall I say, hanging out and sort of touting for business, and we see one of the girls has got long sort of dark hair. She goes towards this car looking for business, but she gets beat to it, and then she sees a black car draw up. And this black car draws up and she goes over and gets in the car, and next thing we see is her sort of like in this sort of long grass, or sort of like almost like a cornfield, being stalked by a killer. She's taken her top off and everything, and he sort of bluntens her to death with like this big sort of like metal sort of pole. And he sort of bashes her in the head and all this sort of gruesome sort of things going on. And he places this sort of like, it's like a sort of moon crescent sort of symbol, sort of jewelry in her hand, as he did with the first girl. He's been placing these little ornaments in there, so obviously to give the police the clue that it's the same killer. And so he's giving them sort of clues, and we meet our cops for the first time as they come to the crime scene and sort of say, oh yeah, it's the same killer. Well done, guys. And so they believe they've got a sort of local killer on their hands. And then we join this sort of other sort of young girl at her, I think she's at a fashion shop or whatever, a sort of a fashion studio, and she's engaged to Mario, who's like the fashion designer, and she's there with a couple of the girls at the shop, and she gets a phone call, and she goes over to answer the phone, and there's no one on the other side. In fact, it's our killer calling her up. And then so the woman that sort of like owns the place says, oh, it's probably just, we get this quite often and all this sort of thing. And then Mario turns up at the shop and sort of like sort of struts his way through. He's pretty camp actually, and he's got these like really perfect eyebrows, and he just looks so weird. But he's there, and he's talking to her about going to this art exhibition at night, and she says she can't because she's got something else on. And then we jump to the art expedition. It jumps around everywhere at the beginning of this film. And we're at this art expedition where we see all these sort of arty-farty people sort of like wandering around, sort of like drinking and smoking, sort of thing. You know, this is Italian, and I'm watching the English dubbed version, which is fantastic. It makes it even better when it's dubbed. Then there's a phone call there asking for one of the women there called Catherine, and she goes to the phone, and we see outside our killer sort of like stalking from the outside, and what he's doing, he's phoned this girl up and to see what she looks like so he knows which one it is. And then we see her going home, her friends dropping her off at her house, her flat, or apartment, whatever it is, and she goes in and she can hear her cats crying, so she goes to feed her cats milk. It's not really food, is it? But anyway, she gives them some milk and then goes and gets changed. And then she hears the cats crying again. She goes, "Oh, you poor things, you're angry with me." So she goes back into the kitchen, and the cats are all laying on the floor dead. They've all been poisoned. The milk's been poisoned. And then she starts hearing noises coming from the front room. And she heads in and she can't see anybody. She just can hear some sort of noises about. And we sort of see her sort of creeping around her flat. And then she goes to the phone to call the police. And we see our black glove come along and grab her and then strangles her with the phone. And she gets killed with the phone. She gets strangled to death, and she falls on the floor, and all the paint sort of from her, she's some sort of painter, all the paint sort of drips down on her and all this. Again, I can't show you any of it because she's half naked in it. And so our killer goes off again and leaves the little jewelry in her hand. And then we join our girl again with Mario, the girl that was in the fashion shop. They're on a train. I think because they're preparing for their wedding. So they're on a train going somewhere, and Mario goes to get a sandwich, and she then gets attacked by our killer. And he's got this knife. He's got the normal sort of flick knife that our killers have in these Giallo films, and he's sort of trying to stab her, and she gets stabbed a few times, but the conductor comes along and sort of saves the day and stops it as it's all happening. But he runs off and finds the girl all cut, all blood and stuff like this. And then we cut to her funeral, and all the people walking through the funeral, and there's someone taking photographs of the funeral and stuff like that. We then cut to the police station where Mario is with the police, and they're showing him all the photos that they took at the funeral to see if he can recognise and who he doesn't recognise, and all this sort of thing. And then it cuts to the hospital, and our girl's not dead. She's still alive. It's just a ploy to sort of like to let the killer think that he's actually killed her. So they faked her funeral. Why? Why they faked her funeral? Who is this killer? Why is he killing these girls? Is it going to get explained throughout the film? You need to watch it and find out. What do I think of Seven Blood-Stained Orchids? I love it. It's fantastic. It is an 18, so it's quite a gory one for a Giallo, but it is fantastic. I absolutely love Giallo films, and this one is right up my street. Mostly because it's all like everywhere. And it's like, you think, what's going on? Who's this guy? Who's that person? It's all made out that you're supposed to know who these people are already, and you don't. But as the film unfolds, you get to know them a bit, and it's all it turns into that normal cat and mouse Giallo horror sort of way where you got the police trying to trap our killer and outthink him and outsmart him, and it's fantastic, absolutely amazing. The pluses of this edition by 88 film, it looks pretty cool. I wouldn't say it's probably the best, but I reckon if they put a bit more effort into it, they can make it look a bit nicer. But it does still look really nice, and in some areas it's really sharp. In other areas, the grain is quite heavy. But it's a really cool transfer, and I quite like that as well. Adds a lot more sort of atmosphere to the film. Really, really cool. The acting's stupid, but it's brilliant. Absolutely love it. It's wonderful. There's some quite good kills in it, although some of them are semi-off screen. You don't see a lot of it, but when you do, there can be some quite gruesome, brutal ones, and which are really, really cool. And I love it. I do like Umberto Lenzi films. I think they're really, really good. So I'm going to score this film an awesome watch and give it an 8 out of 10, which is pretty high score for a Giallo film. But I do love my Giallos, don't I, guys? They're really, really cool. This edition does have like a reversible cover with its Italian sort of title. But it's really, really cool film. Seven Blood-Stained Orchids, 8 out of 10. Any of you guys seen it? If you have, let me know down below what you might have thought of it. I do like the Giallo films. To me, it's a misunderstood horror genre. I think because they're sort of so close between a thriller and the horror, that they get a bit lost in between. But if you go in with a horror headset, you would come out thinking that was a really cool horror film. If you go in with a thriller, you're thinking that was a gory thriller film, you know. So it depends what your sort of like what your take is on it. But I do love the Giallo films. I just think they're absolutely fantastic, and the more and more I see them, the more and more I want to watch. I just think they're fantastic. I do have still quite a few to watch. You remember I bought that Giallo box set. I've still got a couple of movies in there to watch, so I will get round to reviewing them. Hopefully I'm off for a couple of days now, so hopefully going to catch up with a few movies. There's a few Hammer films I want to get out there, and so keep your eyes peeled for all of that coming up. Until then, check out some more horror channels for me. Check out Horror Hands, The Horror Geek, Man v Film, RS Designs, Pizzawell, I Am Ice Lord, Cat Watches Horror Movies, Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House, and a massive shout out to my lad. Till next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon. Oh, and Jenny, I'm not moving, Pooh Bear.